You are listening to your new Puppies podcast, starting you and your dog off on the right paw. Here's your host, Debbie Salento.
Hello, I'm Debbie, and welcome to episode 11 of Your New Puppies podcast. So if you're listening to this in real time, we took a little bit of a break for August, but now that summer's winded down, kids are back in school, we're going to jump back into it. We're going to warm up with a super simple topic, retractable leashes, because just about anybody who owns a dog owns a retractable leash, and it makes sense. I own one. And I'm about to tell you why you shouldn't. They make so much sense. Like, you can make it short if you want to, or you can give your dog lots of freedom. It's like 10 leashes in one. But it's one of those products that, in theory, it seems really great. But in the actual use of it, not so much. So I'm going to give you some safety reasons as well as some training and behavior reasons that maybe you should grab the regular 6-foot leash as opposed to the retractable leash next time you bring your dog out for his walk. So as I just mentioned, I own one myself. My first dog as an adult, it was my responsibility. It was one of the first products that I bought, again, because it made so much sense. Why not? Then at some point, I switched over to a regular 6-foot leash, and I couldn't believe how much more I actually enjoyed the walks just by changing the leash. I couldn't really pinpoint why. I just knew that I would rather walk him with a regular leash than a retractable one. Now, as a trainer and through my own experience, I understand why. With a retractable leash, you just don't have any control. So you can let your dog out 20 feet, that's great, but what happens when you need to get him to you really quickly? It's not that easy because you can't really grab that wire, and it doesn't reel in very cleanly when you need him quickly to you. Like if there's another dog coming that might not be too friendly, or there's a squirrel in the middle of the street, or if your dog just goes out into the street because he smells something and all of a sudden there's a big truck coming. You need to get him to you quickly. You really can't do that with a retractable leash. Plus, if you already use one, and it's probably happened to you, especially if you have a bigger dog, that big clunky thing that you carry around, it can get pulled out of your hand so easily. If for some reason your dog decides to take off, when he gets to the end of that string, that thing can be pulled out of your hand and your dog is gone. As opposed to a regular leash where you can put the loop around your wrist and then grab onto the actual leash, and you can actually even grab the leash further down. So now you have 3 points where you're holding on to your dog. Another big reason, and I touched on this a little bit a moment ago, is that wire. That wire can be very dangerous for you and your dog. Imagine a situation as silly as, another dog approaches you, they're both friendly, and they start walking around your legs, and you get wrapped around your legs, maybe you get attached to the other person, and then everybody ends up on the ground. But then imagine if somehow that leash gets wrapped around you and your dog takes off. There's a lot of incidences where you can get cuts on your hand and even more major injuries. And not only can that happen to you, but it can happen to your dog. Now, those are my big reasons because they involve safety. They involve your safety and the dog's safety. And in my book, that takes precedence to everything else. But there are other reasons to consider that have to do with training and your dog's behavior. So the first thing is something that you probably didn't think about because I didn't ever really thought about it, is that retractable leashes actually encourage pulling. So if you think about it, for the leash to actually extend out, the dog has to pull on it. There's going to be some pressure on the collar or the harness for him to be able to get over to that tree that's 10 feet away and sniff it. So he's learning that on his walk, there's always going to be that pressure on his collar and on his harness. So he's actually learning to pull on the leash to get to go where he wants to go. Another reason that I talk about a lot is the resource, the actual freedom that you're giving him when he can pull 20, he's 20 feet away from you and he can just go to whatever tree or stop and sniff wherever he wants. And I do encourage when you walk your dog to let him sniff the tree, let him sniff the ground and explore, because it's his walk too, but it should be on your terms. And if he's on a retractable leash and he can pull 20 feet away from you whenever he wants, then there's no reason for him to turn around and look to you for any kind of guidance at any point. So it goes back to creating that bond and that relationship where your dog looks to you for his resources, for his guidance. You can give him as many as you want, but it has to be your decision to give it to him. And last, but certainly not least, is the bonding. Your walk, a lot of us use it just so our dogs can go to the bathroom, but it's a bonding experience with your dog. And if your dog is off 20 feet to the right, 20 feet ahead of you, you're not on the same walk. You're not bonding. If he's given all this freedom and can walk wherever he wants, he's not looking to you. He's not bonding with you on the walk. I mean, that's a big reason why I encourage all of my clients, and I encourage you, when you do take your dog for a walk, put the phone away. Leave the headphones at home. Shut your phone off, put it in your back pocket if you're not comfortable leaving it completely at home, and really experience the walk with your dog. But I also encourage you to experience it with just a regular 6-foot leash, either attached to his harness, attached to the collar. You're going to have a lot more control. It's a lot safer. It's better for your dog's behavior and your bonding experience. Just try it. Just try it a couple times with the regular leash, and I'm telling you, you're going to see a difference. You're going to feel a difference. It's just going to feel a little better. So going back to what I said before, you probably look around and just about everybody uses a retractable leash, and they're all over the pet store. But that's because they seem really smart. They make a lot of sense, but in actual execution, not so much. Now, there are a couple places that you could really use a long line, like a 20-foot line. Buy a long leash. For the price that one of those retractable leashes costs you, you could buy a 6-foot leash and a 20-foot leash. And there are times to use that long line, when you're training a recall or when you're training off-leash behaviors. If you have a big, large field, I have a large field by my house. It's behind a business complex. So on Saturdays, there is nobody around. So I'll take my girls back there and just let them run through the field. And I have my one who would chase after a rabbit in a second on a long leash. So she gets the freedom, but I still have a hold of her because there's just more control there. Okay, so that's all I have for you. Like I said, this was just a nice little warm-up episode. I hope your summer was fantastic, and you should be hearing from me again very soon. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to your New Puppies podcast. Learn more about us at playtimepaws.com.